Early in the morning, just as the sun was rising, a young couple who had recently gotten married found themselves awoken by their doorbell ringing. The wife, who was the only one awake at the time, was just about to step into the shower. Frustrated by the interruption, she muttered, "Damn." She quickly wrapped herself in a large towel and scurried to the door. When she opened it, she found Bill, her husband's best friend, standing there. Bill, seeing her only in a towel, turned red and awkwardly asked, "Is your husband home?" She replied, still holding the towel around her, "He is, but he's still in bed asleep." A brief, uncomfortable silence followed. Bill cautiously looked around to make sure no one else was nearby, and then leaned in a bit closer. He whispered, "I'll give you $200 right now if you drop that towel." He held out $200 bills as he spoke. The wife was shocked at first, but then she thought about it. They were a newlywed couple just starting their life together, and they could really use the extra money. With a roll of her eyes, she decided to take up the offer. She dropped the towel, revealing herself completely. Bill took his time admiring her, then handed over the money and promptly left. Shortly after, her husband came downstairs, still half asleep. Rubbing his eyes, he asked, "Who was at the door?" A bit nervously, she answered, "Oh, it was just your friend Bill." Her husband perked up and said with excitement, "Great. Did he give you the $200 he borrowed from me yesterday?" Two men found themselves sitting side by side at a bar, striking up a conversation. After a bit of talking, one of them said, "I can't help but think, from listening to you, that you're from Ireland." The second man replied with pride, "Yes, that I am." The first man, feeling a sense of camaraderie, asked, "So am I. And where in Ireland are you from?" The second man answered, "I'm from Dublin, I am." The first man was excited and said, "Sure and begorra, and so am I. What part of Dublin are you from?" The second man replied, "I lived on McCleary Street in the old central part of the city. A lovely little area it was." The first man couldn't believe it and said, "Faith, and it's a small world. I lived there too. And which school did you attend?" The second man said, "I went to St. Mary's, of course." This revelation made the first man even more excited as he exclaimed, "And so did I. What year did you finish school?" "Well now, I graduated in 1964, answered the second man. The first man was overjoyed and said, "The good Lord must be smiling down upon us. What are the chances that we'd end up in the same bar tonight? I graduated from St. Mary's in 1964 myself." Just then, another customer walked into the bar and sat down to order a beer. The bartender, observing this entire exchange, walked over shaking his head and muttered to himself, "It's going to be a long night tonight. The Murphy twins are drunk again." An 18-year-old single Catholic girl, visibly upset and in tears, entered a church seeking guidance. She approached the priest and pleaded, "Please, Father, help me." The priest, concerned, asked gently, "What troubles you, my child?" The girl, with a shaky voice, confessed, "Father, I desperately need your help. I'm pregnant." The priest sighed with understanding. "I see, my child. While you have strayed, remember that you are not alone in this. Our Lord is forgiving, and I am here to support you. However, we need to understand the circumstances of your situation." "But Father, I swear I haven't sinned." "It just happened," the girl insisted. The priest, now puzzled, inquired further, "Can you explain what you mean? Who is the child's father?" The girl firmly stated, "There is no father. I have never been intimate with a man in my life." The priest, growing increasingly worried, asked, "Was there any unusual incident? Perhaps pressure from someone in your family, or a situation where you lost consciousness at a gathering?" The girl shook her head and said, "Nothing like that, Father. I'm quite introverted and spend most of my time at home. I don't attend parties. The priest responded, My child, I can only help if you are honest with me. If you continue to withhold the truth, I may have no choice but to involve the authorities. Feeling cornered, the girl looked down, defeated. I knew this wouldn't work. I should have listened to my friend's advice. The priest reassured her. I understand this is hard for you, but I promise everything will be all right. What did your friend advise you? The girl hesitated, then finally said, She warned me that the last time a girl managed to pull this one with a priest, she had to create an entire new religion to cover it up. Dean, who had been the town's dedicated postman, was finally retiring after 50 long years of service. To mark his last day, he decided to do one final round in his USPS van, delivering the last set of parcels. His first stop was at the local library. The librarian, who knew Dean well, greeted him with a warm smile and handed him a leather-bound volume of the complete works of Charles Dickens, saying, Here you are, Dean. We know how much you love reading. Now that you're retiring, you'll have all the time in the world to enjoy this. Grateful for the thoughtful gift, Dean expressed his thanks and continued on his route. Next, he made his way to the town liquor store. The store's landlady greeted Dean and handed him a fine bottle of 12-year-old single malt whiskey, telling him, We've been saving this for a special occasion. Enjoy a good drink on us and have a wonderful retirement. Dean was moved by the landlady's kind gesture and headed to the final address on his route. He arrived at Mrs. Smith's house, a young newlywed who had recently moved into the neighborhood. To his surprise, she answered the door in revealing lingerie. She said flirtatiously, I've been expecting you, Dean. You'd better come in. She led him upstairs, and what followed was an unexpected and intimate encounter. Afterward, as Dean was getting dressed, Mrs. Smith slipped a $1 bill into his shirt pocket. Confused, Dean was about to ask a question when Mrs. Smith said, We're not done yet, and led him down to the kitchen. There, she cooked him a lavish lunch complete with steak, eggs, toast, a real feast. As he finished his meal and took a sip of his Coke, Dean finally got the chance to speak. I must say, Mrs. Smith, everyone in town has been very generous today, but your kindness has been overwhelming, he said. I'm curious, what inspired you to go to such lengths? Mrs. Smith revealed. Well, I was trying to think of something nice to do for you, so I asked my husband for advice. She continued. He said, we're new here. Screw him, give him $1. But the lunch was my idea. Two young children, both patients, found themselves lying on stretchers next to each other just outside the operating room in a hospital. The first child, trying to pass the time, leaned over to the other and curiously asked, What are you in here for? The second child replied with a bit of worry in his voice, I'm here to get my tonsils removed. I've got to admit, I'm feeling a little nervous about it. The first child, wanting to offer some comfort, said, You've really got nothing to worry about. I had my tonsils taken out when I was 4 years old. They give you medicine to make you sleep, and when you wake up, they treat you with lots of Jell-O and ice cream. It's really easy and nothing to be scared of. Feeling a bit reassured, the second child then asked the first, So, what are you here for? The first child responded, I'm here for a circumcision. Hearing this, the second child exclaimed, Whoa, I had that done when I was born. And I couldn't walk for an entire year.